While the men of the Empire are constantly menaced by northern reavers, they should consider themselves lucky that only the Norse are on their doorstep. These Northmen, for all their flaws, can be counted among the least malevolent of Chaos Worshippers. At the very least, they can coexist with the Empire and Kislev during times of relative peace, and the more level-headed among their number can even trade with the civilized realms. Not so with the Northerners inhabiting the vast eastern steppes north of Grand Cathay. These nomadic people are fervently dedicated to the Dark Gods, and they do not negotiate with Southerners, even when chaos is at its weakest. They constantly throw themselves against the Great Bastion, seeking to humble the lands of the Dragon Emperor. Yet even among these people, there are some that are particularly renowned for their savagery, that even other Chaos Worshippers fear. They are the Hung, and they live only to unleash a tide of blood across the entire world. To understand the Hung, you must first understand their environment. They live on the easternmost crown of the world, beyond even the steppes of the Kurgan. Their lands stretch above Grand Cathay, across the eastern land bridge connecting the Old and New Worlds, and into the northernmost regions of Nagaroth. Their reach is so long that their eastern holdings intermingle once again with the westernmost lands of the Kurgan, encircling the entire North Pole between the two. This is a huge territory, but it is poor in resources and rich in challenges. The winters are bitterly cold, while the summer sun bakes the earth. Winds and storms batter the land no matter the season. Food and water are scarce, and survival is incredibly difficult. Worst of all, the predation of demons is never too far away, as the winds of magic howl out of the north. To accommodate for their inhospitable homeland, the Hung are a roving, nomadic people by necessity. They follow migrating herds as the seasons demand, avoiding the worst of the weather and demonic activity when possible. This has created an equestrian society, one whose people are more at home atop a mount than on foot. The Hung spend most of their lives in the saddle, with most being literally born in it. Their bodies show the telltale signs of such a life, and all Hung are short, heavily built, and bow-legged. To those unfamiliar with them, a Hung warrior looks like a wingless gargoyle, an illusion enhanced by their ritualistic scarification practices. Instead of horses, they ride stocky, cold-resistant ponies that can feed on both grain and blood. This lifestyle has made the Hung minimalist by necessity, and everything one truly owns can be carried on ponyback. While there are rumors of great Hung cities in the mountains or the north, this seems unlikely, as they believe a sedentary lifestyle is an indicator of weakness. That doesn't stop ambitious treasure hunters from the Empire and Cathay from seeking them out, as these cities are richly adorned according to the legends. In truth, these are probably exaggerated stories of the richest Hung war camps, which are bedecked in silk and gold from their raids against settled people. Despite the trappings of civilization the Hung cover themselves in, they are a truly primitive people, without any knowledge or desire for things beyond survival and warfare. They are hunter-gatherers in the truest sense, and not particularly picky about what they feast upon. When the pickings are good, the Hung will eat fish and game, but during lean times, they will happily consume roots, lice, and human flesh. When particularly desperate, they will even drink the blood of their own ponies. They are willing to do whatever it takes to survive the grim realities of their homeland, no matter how crude or barbaric it may seem to outsiders. Indeed, they seem to relish it. As important as it is for their survival, it's little wonder that hunting has taken on great cultural significance for the Hung. At its basest form, it's a method of providing sustenance for the tribe. At its most grand, it is a way to earn glory in the eyes of the gods by bringing down fierce mutants and twisted monsters. Either way, the Hung do not hunt alone. They have trained raptors, mostly hawks and eagles, to assist them in their pursuit of small game. To take down larger prey, they are assisted by immense hunting dogs, beasts bred for loyalty and ferocity in equal parts. The hounds will even follow their masters into war, harrying enemy cavalry and artillery. Their braying calls have heralded the end of many lightly armored cavalry regiments that overextended themselves in battle against the Hung. Just like all Northerners, the Hung are deeply religious. Their priests and shamans dominate public life, with only a tribe's chief holding more power, and even that isn't a sure thing. In addition to fueling their unending desire to burn the mortal world, many of the Hung's more bizarre practices derive from this unholy piety. For instance, most pay homage to the gods by carrying profane icons of them wherever they go. At mealtimes, they force some of their own food into the idol's mouth in an unsettling feeding ritual. They also refuse to wash themselves or bury their refuse, as they believe it dishonors the gods, most particularly Nurgle. Another, less disgusting part of the Hung faith is how they view the Dark Brothers. Unlike other Northerners, the Hung do not represent them as animals or humanoid figures. Instead, the hostile climate they call home has led them to associate certain aspects of their environment with the gods. Nurgle is seen in mucky earth and the Hung's own leavings. Khorne is witnessed in lightning strikes and flame. With the gods constantly surrounding them, the Hung refuse to build shrines or temples, instead preferring to worship from Saddleback. They do still erect monoliths to house their dead, however. Apparently sky burial is a step too far for the Hung. As might be expected of Chaos worshippers, the Hung define their lives by war. They believe it is their destiny to conquer the world, and see violence, domination, and death as their god's given birthright. The Dark Elves and Grand Cathay are their most common foes, as these people have the misfortune to live closest to the Hung's borders. Their battles against the Hung have been fierce, and shaped the history of both men and elves. The Dragon Emperor erected the Great Bastion, in part to stop their attacks, and the Hung nearly destroyed the Dark Elves during their first year in Naggaroth. Many of the Druchi's initial minor settlements, built in the summer when the Hung were hunting closer to the Chaos Wastes, were overrun as the savages returned to their winter territories. The Northmen poured across the newfound kingdom of the Dark Elves like locusts over a field, even laying siege to the Black Ark that would eventually become Naggarond. They could have taken the city if they had tried. Instead, for some reason, the Hung turned away at the last possible moment and let the Druchi proliferate, much to the world's misfortune. Dark Elf scholars have given the matter a great deal of thought in the millennia since that fateful winter. Why would the Chaos Worshippers back down at the brink of a mighty victory? Some have arrogantly posited that the High Wolves of Naggaroth dismayed even the barbaric hearts of the Hung, and they turned away in fear. Others suggested the Marauders thought that the chill Naggaroth winter could finish the job for them, and left the Dark Elves to die by exposure rather than risk a costly battle. The final major school of thought is that Malicious found a way to deal with the Hung, though what exactly that entailed is unclear. Whatever the reason, the Hung left the Dark Elves alone, at least until the next winter. By that time, however, the Druchi were established, and met the raiders with the cruel bloodthirst their kind is known for. The Northerners were slaughtered, any survivors taken into slavery to build the Dark Elf Empire. For the next several thousand years, the Dark Elves and Hung would repeat this pattern of conflict, with occasional alliances and frequent betrayals on both sides. Indeed, if there is one thing that the Hung are famed for, even more so than their savagery, it is their treachery. They are considered exceptionally deceitful, even for those pledged to darkness, and only a fool would turn their back on one. Word of a Hung is a common phrase among Cathayans, indicating a worthless promise. While they may enter into alliances with profane non-humans, such as Chaos Dwarfs and Dark Elves as previously mentioned, they do not last long. The Hung don't consider this kind of behavior dishonorable, as they believe non-Hung to be less than people. Only another Hung can trust a Hung, and that is still not a sure thing. Despite all their bloodthirsty savagery, despite their treacherous nature, despite worshipping powers that wish to destroy the whole world, the Hung do possess some redeeming qualities. They are incredibly egalitarian, possessing no hierarchies to speak of. Women are equal to men in all aspects of society. Talented warriors may be respected above others, but no Hung may command another Hung. Additionally, they possess a surprising amount of national unity. While they live in a vast variety of tribes, such as the Agles, Hmong, Yin, Qian, Tukat, Wei Tao, Manchu, Dreaded Wu, and Kuj, each of these people still consider themselves to be Hung. As such, while they do not treat each other well, they still treat each other better than they do non-Hungs. Unfortunately, these are their only virtues. Otherwise, they are just as ghastly as the legends claim, to the detriment of the world. With that, we have finally reached the end of our overview of the Hung. That was a long one, almost made it to the Patreon. There's just so much to cover on these guys, and there wasn't even a Total War section. Don't worry, you aren't missing too much. They're not very well presented. There's just the Aggles and the Hmong in Immortal Empires, though I'm pretty sure that the dreaded Wu make an appearance in-game during special events as well. Like I said, not too much. All in all though, they're pretty cool, and it's interesting to see that there are a lot of different Chaos cultures roaming the far north. I imagine the Hmong augment the Kurgan as the Chaos Warriors Mounted Division. Truth be told, I'm not entirely sure how you could differentiate the two on tabletop or in Total War, so I suppose it must be enough to know there's a difference in the lore. Anyways, if you enjoyed learning about the Hmong, consider liking the video, or maybe leave a comment down below. All the good YouTube stuff, you know. If my comment about a Patreon caught your attention and you're wondering what that's all about, I've got a link down below if you want to see some videos way earlier than your average viewer, and generally show your support. That's all I have at the moment though, so until next time, this has been Sigmar's Chosen, signing off for now.